Dear students, Braille, a system of reading and writing for the blind, has been around for over 200 years. Recently, we have seen a significant decline in Braille literacy among blind people around the world. At the same time, we have seen instances wherein many blind people attain success in education and employment. This led to the belief that blind persons can now do without Braille. Despite Braille being criticized as old fashioned, Braille is still as primary and reliable means of accessing information to blind and those with severe conditions of low vision. Others, in order to keep up with the global trends, have shifted away from this traditional approach to use modern digital technology in order to adapt to the growing demands of the 21st century. Audio information and assistive technology play a crucial role among blind individuals in today's context. The two main reasons for the decline in Braille literacy are audio formats of books and assistive technology. People who support these technologies believe that blind people can learn the same skills by using audiobooks and listening to screen readers instead of reading information in Braille. In addition, these people believe that the use of audio and assistive technologies lessens the need for Braille equipment and production. A book, for instance, can simply be stored in a small mobile device with a screen reader rather than being produced in Braille in large volumes. Braille is considered as a life-changing system. Advocates of Braille still believe that it is an essential system which every blind person should learn. Now, let me outline the reasons why Braille is still useful today. The number one reason is that Braille defines literacy. The single most important aspect of learning Braille boils down to literacy. You can listen to audiobooks and speech software for hours on end, but it is not going to teach you the fundamentals of sentence structure, punctuation, and so on. These are things that can only teach through writing, or in this case with Braille. To some, Braille may only seem like small dots on paper, but those dots are learning tools that teach visually impaired individuals a number of different things. By touching over the dots with your finger, you can determine how words and sentences are structured, which is an invaluable tool for blind and visually impaired individuals. Braille consists of small dots arranged in various patterns. The different combinations determine whether you are reading a letter, word, or number. By learning Braille, you will also learn punctuation, and this is a huge benefit of its own. A sighted person who can read and write printed text is considered literate. The same can be said with blind people. Braille has been internationally accepted as the official communication system for the blind. So, a blind person who can read and write Braille is deemed literate. One who cannot use Braille is considered illiterate, even though that person can use assistive technology to read and write. The other reason that Braille is essential is that Braille upholds the right of the blind. Braille supports the right to information of the blind people. When there is a local or a global event which everyone needs and wants to know, the same details regarding that news should be informed to the blind people. For example, when there are new laws or changes existing laws, they need to know as what the additions or modifications are. Braille aims to provide these things to blind person. It enables people who cannot read printed text to read for themselves what is going on in their locality, country, and even around the world. Braille in education. Before a blind person starts using assistive technology, they must first learn how to manually read and write. And this is where Braille is very essential. Braille provides the fundamentals of reading and writing for the blind. Braille enables to learn to know letters, words, spelling, punctuation, and sentence structures. Thus, A blind person has to learn Braille before using computer, as a sighted individual person needs to learn to read and to write printed text before using gadget or computer. Braille helps blind person to get employment. There are professional benefits to learning Braille as well. A blind person who learns manual reading and writing has a better foundation of knowledge when starting to use more advanced technology. Such skills and knowledge are very important in finding a suitable job. And even when one who has already found employment, Braille is still useful in almost all types of tasks in the workplace. A survey conducted by Louisiana Tech University found that people with visual impairment who learn to read through Braille have a much higher chance of securing job. In addition, Braille gives blind people the best option to read a wide range of books and publications. Virtually any type of reading materials, both old and new, can be transcribed in Braille. It can be argued that though assistive technologies such as screen readers can give the same information in a relatively easier manner, screen readers require the use of hearing, and this is very different from actually reading text. Braille gives a sense of privacy and independence. Braille lets people to freely express their thoughts on paper without being concerned that other people may read personal things about them. It also lets blind persons read for themselves, label their own belongings, and compensate for things they cannot do because of their disability. Everyone should learn to read and write. Several studies show that Braille literacy is directly correlated with academic achievement and employment among the blind and visually impaired. The matter of fact, this is especially true in comparison to those who otherwise rely on voice synthesizers. Braille is useful in everyday life. A person who reads Braille can move independently among community, as Braille increasingly is showing up everywhere, particularly in public places. With the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities implemented in 2008, since then over 150 countries have signed the ratification. The declaration has introduced the recognition of persons with disabilities on an equal basis with others worldwide. Additionally, society is beginning to recognize the need to present equality of all citizens within its communities. Therefore, public spaces continue to present tools and aids for all disabilities. For example, you may see Braille in much occupancy, including elevators, airplanes, restaurants, banknotes, bathrooms, and so many places. Braille is found in ATM machines. This allows blind and visually impaired people to navigate their way around areas with ease. Placing hand up against a Braille tablet or surface will allow the visually impaired person to read what it has to say. A Braille tablet might tell whether a bathroom is for men or women, which is something you probably want to know before entering. Braille is used in everyday communication, and as a literate blind or visually impaired individual, independence is given. How will a blind person independently move in a society without knowing Braille? Blind individuals deserve this chance at equality, and this is something that Braille provides. Speech feedback or other digital tools are no compensation for Braille. Listening alone is not enough. If blind individuals do not put forth the effort to learn the system of writing, they won't be able to read Braille used in these areas. Even with all the advanced text-to-speech communication available, there is simply nothing that compares to learning Braille. To read without Braille, a person who is blind entirely dependent on computers with voice synthesizers or audio recording, neither of which is useful in every circumstances. Braille brings sight to the visually impaired and blind. Apart from Braille books and documents, Braille can be used for taking and giving personal notes, Braille labels for food, DVDs, medicine, household object, and so on, receipt or bills, menus, tactile graphics, pharmaceutical packaging, school assignment and studying, legal paperwork, and the list goes on. Braille in the digital age. In today's fast paced world driven by technology, is Braille still relevant? Access to information that the digital age provides is vital for all people, especially for blind and visually impaired people who traditionally have had many barriers to information access. Blind people and many professionals believe that Braille is critically important for blind people to have equally accessible and affordable technology for staying connected through text messaging and email, downloading textbooks, and reading novels. Although there is no clear consensus on the causes of this decline, a number of factors have been cited. Among them are the negative attitudes towards Braille, greater reliance on speech output and print magnification technology, a rise in the number of blind children with additional disabilities who are non readers, disputes on the utility of the Braille code, and the decline in teachers' knowledge of Braille and methods for teaching it. However, the most likely reason for the declining pattern is the apparent affinity by the visually impaired to opt for speech output and print magnification technology. But it is this 21st century approach really a threat to preserving Braille literacy? It is often hastily said that technology prevents the need for Braille. In the context of literacy development, the availability of text-to-speech technology and audio text, for example, is advanced as an argument against the use of Braille, as auditory methods have too been supported as an effective stimulant for learning. In a published journal article entitled Is Listening Literacy by Turtle in 1996, listening or being read to can be an alternative form to developing basic literacy skills for children with visual impairment. If this is true, why then would learning Braille still be necessary today? On the other hand, other schools of thought argue and insist that literacy is the ability to read and write. While using speech output and recorded books is an alternative way for children to gain information, it is not enough to teach them basic reading and writing skills. In fact, children, regardless whether regular or visually impaired, who rely solely on listening as means of learning have been found to be struggling in areas like spelling and composition, which are key indicators of basic literacy skills. In other words, listening alone through speech output technology is not enough. It needs to be combined with either a visual or tactile approach. Abu Bakr, a 2011 graduate from University of Brunei Darussalam, accredits parts of his success to Braille. He shared, being able to use Braille has had a huge impact in his life as a congenitally blind student. It is the key to literacy and it has made him realize his potential and enabled him to accomplish many things in life that otherwise would not be possible. He further said, technology can be seductive, but the machines have their own limits. There is no substitute for the ability to read. For blind people, Braille is an essential tool that aids in the process of becoming literate. Tape recorders and synthesized speech are useful tools, but they are inadequate substitutes for reading and writing. Braille literacy plays the same key role in a blind person's life that print literacy does in the sighted person. Research shows that Braille literacy directly correlates with academic achievement and employment. There are many reasons why a blind person needs to be able to read Braille. Some of them are to gain a better understanding of language, for information, to gain employment, to facilitate communication between people, for pleasure and entertainment, and for daily living. Too often, when a person loses their sight, no serious attempt is made to introduce them to Braille. To the trauma of loss of sight is thus added the further and equally serious handicap of loss of literacy. Audiobooks have provided an excellent additional resource for reading comprehension, but listening is not synonymous with reading, and studies show that students who can read Braille tend to acquire higher literacy rates on an average. In addition, the palpable experience that is involved in reading and using Braille has endured for almost 200 years and could never be replaced by any kind of assistive technology. On the contrary, Braille is being incorporated into modern technological development. Today, Braille printers called embossers have also made it possible to produce mass quantities of Braille materials. And quite recently, a small device called the refreshable Braille display has been developed to support the ever increasing digital access needs to personal computers and popular touchscreen tablets. However, despite the recent innovations, there are still many misconceptions about the Braille system. For example, Braille has been blamed for isolating and stigmatizing students from peers who read print, or Braille is always slower than reading print and difficult to learn. Yet, studies have found that Braille is an efficient and effective reading medium, with students demonstrating a reading speed exceeding 200 words per minute. Rather than making it obsolete, today's technology makes Braille even more accessible and portable to its users in the form of Braille note takers, transcription software, and refreshable Braille display for computers. A young woman with a visual impairment explained the significance of this development in the recent article featured in the Guardian, saying, Braille has a versatility and a fluidity that it has never had before. Braille is portable, searchable, downloadable, and if you harness it, Braille is better than it has ever been. Braille is an important skill for individuals who are blind. In today's high-tech digital age, blind and visually impaired individuals have dozens of highly effective options for communications. The ability to read and write in Braille opens the door to literacy, intellectual freedom, equal opportunity, and personal security. It is an extremely important gateway to opportunity for the blind or low vision people, enabling them to be more independent. To conclude, I would like to quote the famous saying of Helen Keller. She said, "We, the blind, are as indebted to Louis Braille as mankind is to Gutenberg, who invented printing to Europe with a printing machine." Using text-to-speech software is certain to help visually impaired individuals cope with their disability, but there is simply nothing that compares to Braille technology. With these points in mind, it is very exciting to think of how Braille might continue to evolve with the technology and reach an even wider audience in these years to come. Ultimately, the tangible feeling provided by Braille is still very important to blind persons as human beings. Nothing beats the actual experience of holding and feeling a book, turning its pages, reading its text, and even smelling its paper. These things can never be replaced by any kind of assistive technology. Hence, Braille is still matchless. Thank you.